I'm the fabulous Gilly, the high priest of sports, and I want to have a heart-to-heart with Mr. Pierre Gauthier, GM of the Montreal Canadiens. Now I know, Mr. Gauthier, you're not an easy man to get to talk to, and I realize when you were the GM up in the nation's capital, it wasn't important. People didn't want to see you that much. Ottawa being a very conservative town and just happy to be in the NHL. And of course, when you were shipped off to Anaheim, that was the best place for you. You could have gone with your surfboard every morning and rode the waves. Nobody would have missed you. But now we're talking Montreal, and fans want answers, Mr. Gauthier. But I'm going to make it as simple and as easy as possible. I want to concentrate on the Scotty Gomez trade when you were in charge of pro scouting and Captain Bob's right-hand man. I don't want to say too much about the Mike Ribeiro deal, recommending a player that couldn't stand on his skates anymore for Mike. Or we don't want to say too much about the Spacek deal, recommending a player, and I'm sure you scouted him, and he was a heck of a good defenseman all those years in the league. But in his last year at Buffalo, if you watch closely, Mr. Gauthier, he looked like a fighter that stayed around a year too long in the ring. His reflexes were gone. He was having trouble tracking the puck. And what about the big one, Mr. Hal Gill, the shot-blocking machine? I mean, a leader in the dressing room. Mr. Gauthier, Hal had just come off a cup run with the Penguins. Why didn't Mario keep him around for another year or two? I mean, he was great with the young guys, great on the PK, but no, he ends up in Montreal at $2.5 million or whatever to go along with Spacek's $3.8 million. And then, as GM, we have the Halleck deal, which I don't want to get into now, but I have heard, and maybe this will get you off the hook on this one with the fans, Mr. Gauthier. I understand that your long-distance budget was full, and you only had room for one more call, and you made it to St. Louis, but we'll discuss that at another time in our next interview. And Sopo, I mean, here's another cup run with Chicago, and I know they have cap issues, but maybe for a guy who's a monster on the PK, a leader in the dressing room, I mean, they had no room for him again in Chicago, so they shipped him off to Atlanta, and you got him from Atlanta to come to Montreal. Now, in Glenn's defense, I understand he's been injured and he hasn't played too much. But what I have seen and what I hear, he doesn't get to the puck. He was never very fast before, very little foot speed. But whatever he had, he doesn't seem to have now, and is certainly not doing the job that you thought he was going to do, Mr. Gauthier. But all that aside, let's talk Scotty Gomez. There was rumors back then that you were seen down around the eastern seaboard scouting Scotty. And you couldn't wait to jump on the phone and say, Captain Bob, we got to get this guy. He's the best playmaker in the game. Yeah, right. Captain Bob says, well, what are you waiting for, Pierre? Call Slats. So you call Sather. Hey, Glenn, it's me. Who's you? It's me, Pierre Gauthier. Yeah, what do you want, Pierre? I'm busy. No, I just spoke to Captain Bob, and we want to take that big contract with Scotty Gomez off your hands. Well, I think you're a little late, Pierre. I have 18 general managers. Everybody's chasing me for Scotty. Well, I want to get into the running. What are you offering? Well, I'm going to take the contract off your hands. I'm doing this for you, Glenn. I'm saving you from the embarrassment of the worst hockey contract in hockey history. In fact, the only other one who would have done anything like this, the only other GM, would have been that short-brained imbecile Mike Milbury. I don't want to hear about Mike Milbury. He was a moron even when he played for the Bruins. You got to do a lot better than that, taking a contract off my hands. I'm being offered players, draft choices. Well, let me tell you something, Glenn. Let me call Captain Bob. I'll get back to you. All right, I spoke to Captain Bob, Glenn. He says we should throw in Chris Higgins. Chris Higgins? What do you mean, Chris Higgins? What has he done lately? What has he done lately? He's a former #1 draft choice. He had 27 goals a couple of years ago. But what has he done now? Well, you know, he's had a few injuries, Glenn, and maybe a few little problems outside of the game, but that can be adjusted. I mean, he brings speed. He's a great penalty killer. Okay, Pierre. So we got Higgins in the deal. Is that it? We have a deal? Come on now. What else you offering? I'll get back to you. You know what, Pierre? Nothing's getting back to you. Never mind Captain Bob. Can you do the deal or not? I'll tell you what. I'll throw in Ryan McDonough. Ryan who? Ryan McDonough. Who the hell's Ryan McDonough, Pierre? Come on. He was our #1 draft choice. Mr. Minnesota. Mr. Hockey in Minnesota. What are you talking about? That was David Fisher. No, David Fisher never made it. He was another #1 draft choice that we screwed up. You know, Trevor Timmons there and his amateur staff, they screwed up so many #1 picks. But this McDonough kid is special. I mean, he played on the U.S. team, Glenn, and he's playing really well at Wisconsin. I mean, here's a kid in the next year or two who's going to give you 22, 24 minutes a game. He's strong in his own end. He's solid. He moves the puck out very well. Come on, Glenn. All right. Take it easy, Pierre. You know what? You got yourself a deal. And I'm only doing it because I got a soft spot for Montreal. Remember, I had a cup of coffee there back in the 70s. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Because of my long friendship with Red Fisher, I'm going to throw in Tommy Pyatt. Pyatt. That's that kid in Phoenix. No, Pierre, what the hell's wrong with you? This is his brother. And he's much better. If you give this kid the minutes, he'll get you 25, 30 goals. No kidding. Do we have a deal, Glenn? You got a deal. Glenn, let me tell you, Bob and I are never going to forget this. You're very dear to our heart. All right. Stop the crap, Pierre. Come on now. Go, get out of here. I got things to do. I got to call back 18 general managers and tell them that the big bear from Alaska is going to Montreal. You think they're going to be happy with me? Well, I'm thrilled. All right, bug off, Pierre. I got work to do. Well, let me tell you something, Pierre. When you get on this interview, you tell me if this is the way everything went down. But you know what? If this is the way it did, if everything I'm saying is factual, you know, it's very easy for me to get paranoid. Because I start to think, and I let my imagination run away with itself a bit. And I start saying, you know, you can never get hold of Mr. Gauthier. If he's not at his place in Vermont on the weekends, why isn't he around during the week? And then I start to think that maybe he's up in Hawktown working for Berkey and sabotaging Le Bleu Blanc Rouge. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Gauthier. If this is fact, it's gonna burn my arse!